Greetings, nerds. I'm going to show you how to spot fake and adulterated fluorescent pigments within your paint for paints that are advertising as fluorescent. Now, there's a couple things to know about fluorescent things. A fluorescent paint is going to be called luminous or opera from a lot of brands. Some of them will call them fluorescent, but those are two very common ones. Another thing is the majority of these are going to be on a melamine formaldehyde resin. There's something like a rhodamine dye that is just basically slapped onto a melamine resin. Not all of them are going to be a formaldehyde, melamine resin, melamine formaldehyde, whatever, but a lot will be. A lot of times the formaldehyde resins are going to be much more bright and just luscious of a color, while the eco or whatever you want to call them, the non-formaldehyde ones, are going to be much dimmer. So you're not going to see them too much in paint, though you will. Either way, we're going to start off with these three colors in this video: violet, white, and blue. We're going to start off with blue. So blue is the most commonly adulterated and faked one. If we compare it to golden, who does in fact use a genuine single monopigment, whatever you want to call it, you can see perfect match right there from a thin, and from peak albedo we have a very dark blue that's kind of scudgy, if you know what that means. So we have a good example here that matches the pigment. We also have it right here, and we have our next blue right here, which is Daler-Rowney. So Daler-Rowney puts in a little bit of phthalo blue into here. So you can see it's not an exact match. It doesn't even match up there. It's too dark. There are two blue pigments on the market technically for fluorescent. One is by Dayglow. It is still not that dark. I don't have it. I'm trying to acquire it, but this stuff is very expensive to acquire. It's I have to pay about $50 for a half pound, which is quite expensive to say the least. Now, this right here, see, it's not exact, but we can still show you that it is a fluorescent, so they are indeed using a fluorescent pigment. This right here is scale 75. Notice how the label glows even more than the paint? Yeah, this is not a fluo pigment. This doesn't even match up. Way too dark. This doesn't match up. Way too dark. What this is phthalo blue. They claim this is a fluorescent pigment, but is not. When we compare this to phthalo blues right here, red shade and green shade, this more resembles the green shade. Now, I don't know which one specifically this is, because phthalos can come in 100 different types, and between batches they all change pretty drastically, but it's a green shaded one nonetheless. So it could be 2, it could be 3, or it could be 4. I'm pretty sure it's a 3 or a 2, though. Now, another reason why I know this is phthalo blue is because of these tests right here. With one pipette drop of white and one Da Vinci Maestro size 0 into that drop, we mix them up. Daler-Rowney, very low pigmentation. Golden, very high pigmentation, but still you can see more white within it. And with scale 75 here, it dominated. It completely dominated it, which is a problem. Phthalo blue is the one that dominates. Fluorescent does not. Fluorescent with a very high pigmentation, and I kind of did use a little bit more than I should have in that one. Rather than one full brush, I kind of overloaded the brush a little bit. So it's a little bit too blue. But either way, this still dominated. And that's a huge problem because now they're saying that they use fluorescent pigment, but that's phthalo blue. And just to make this even more fair, here, we'll do a live dropping of this on the paper. Just to even enhance this. Still doesn't glow. You can't blame quality control on that. That is just marketing deception as a whole. Speaking of marketing deceptions as well, let's get to the next color. White is another one that's commonly faked. Now, this is generally speaking not going to be seen in paint too often. There are two brands that I know of. I think a few others do it, but I know Lascaux, Lefranc, and Bourgeois both do it, and I think Turner and Holbein both make one. I don't remember if Holbein makes it, but I think Turner does. I might be mixing them up too. It was one of the Japanese paint companies that does it. Now, grab this little page here. We'll need this in a second. We grab scale 75 again, and we look. Most people probably already know this. This is a metallic. Now, this looks a lot like Iriodin 307, and they're near identical. On this paper right here, I have their fluo white, heavily thinned down. This is, a normal fluo white, and just to confirm, it glows. This does not. This does not. Second confirmation. The irony of this white, though, is that the label contains fluorescent white, which is pretty funny to me. So this is, as I said, a metallic. It looks almost identical to a cosmetic version of Iriodin, which just means it's heavily sifted down to a 10 to 30 micron range, something like that. I'll get into a different video where I explain that whole thing. But right here, this is Lefranc and Bourgeois. I did not have the time or the money to get the Lascaux or any other brand. I just had the time to get Lefranc Bourgeois, which, if you've ever smelled Lefranc and Bourgeois, it's a very good paint. However, it smells like you're going to get cancer if you get anywhere near the tube, even when it's closed. It's the worst smelling paint ever. It smells like the devil's asshole. This, however, is fluorescent. Now, some companies will call this invisible blue or invisible ink as well. In fact, a lot of invisible inks are made with this. Who knew? It's a very transparent white, as you can see. However, it is a fairly bright white. We can compare it to the titanium white right there. It's a little bit brighter. That right there is Holbein Pearl. And yeah, that's pretty much identical to Fluo white right here from scale 75. So this is the second time they've called something a fluorescent, said that all the paints in this line are fluorescent, but it's not fluorescent. Pretty scummy if you ask me. So let's get on to violet. With violet, this is the actual violet. There's only one violet pigment on the market. I've been trying to find more, but this is what it looks like. This is a paint made with it. They list it as BV15. You can see, perfect match. Golden's is the exact same. Golden is always our golden sample here, by the way. Haha. Yeah, stupid pun, I know. But yeah, as you can see, exact same. Right here, we have Holbein and we have Liquitex. Holbein's is more transparent than Liquitex's is, but Holbein's is also a gouache, or the one I picked up was a gouache, and this one was a heavy-bodied acrylic. So that's going to come with more weight. And that was thinned down a fair bit as well, just because gouaches are kind of gritty and I don't like touching them. Now we have Scale 75 once again. And to be fair to Scale 75, Pro Acryl does the same thing. This right here is not the exact same. This is not the pigment. This is more purple. Now, in all fairness here, let's turn off the light again. We can see Holbein, Liquitex, BV15, this pigment right here, and their thing right here. Now, I believe the Scale 75 purple was on here somewhere. That's the, yeah, right there. So it's right here. It does fluoresce. However, that's not the correct thing for the violet. What this is, and we go back to this side here, is a mixture of their blue, their phthalo blue, and their pink. Now the pink is, generally speaking, going to be something like this. You mix it with that, and I got that. So these two combined, turn to that. This is their purple right there. This is my mixture. Turn off the light again. Their mixture is less glowy than mine because I don't have enough phthalo blue in here. So there you go. Less glowy. I know, kind of hard to see, but oh well. I'm trying here. It's very hard to showcase this on camera, after all. So a lot of companies are going to do that because this is just not a fun color to work with a lot of the time. Some people I know are going to absolutely adore this. And by the way, this is kind of more day glowy, so it's much brighter. Now, one problem with fluorescents as a whole is that they tend to fade. As I said, they're a dye. So they only have a half-life of about a week or two within a museum. This means within your house they start to fade in about a year or two at best. You won't notice the fading until it's basically completely desaturated, because of just how it works. You'll go to your mini and go, I thought this was much brighter when I first painted it. Because the fading is so gradual and it happens every day, you just don't notice it. So I'm going to offer here some alternatives to all of these. Now, I don't have perfect for all of them, but I have close enough. So some replacement for these, it's going to be, for violet, we have cobalt violet. However, this is quite expensive and kind of hard to get. Most cobalt violets on the market are going to be PV47, so you only have a limited time to pick them up as well, as it's now an extinct pigment. However, PV14 is a good replacement for it, but it's just not really available on the market at the moment. That being said, it's probably going to be switching over to PV14. Now, this comes in multiple different shades. We have a much darker one. We also have a much brighter one as well. This one is kind of hard to find. This is the, what is it? I think they call it Tutti Frutti or some weird thing like that. It's the Cobalt Violet Light, and it's very bright, as you can tell. Now, you also have a couple other things. We're looking for transparency. This is Manganese Violet. Manganese Violet is, there's two versions, a red shade and a blue shade. This is the red shade. I only have the red shade at the moment. But this is a very transparent, low tint strength violet. So it's better for glazing and things of that nature. You're not really going to find it in acrylics too often. However, you will find it in oils for pretty cheap. That being said, if there is market demand for that, I will make it myself. For blue, we have a ton of options. So one of the best options here is going to be this Manganese Blue Extra from Old Holland. This is a mixed pigment thing. However, it's very transparent. It's very bright. As you can see, it's very nice. It's what people are expecting from a fluorescent blue. And of course, you have Phthalo Blue. Scale 75 uses it, so why don't you? And this is way cheaper. Now, there are other options like Yinmin Blue, but I mean, Yinmin Blue is too expensive. You also have a couple other options here. You have Phthalo Blue Turquoise, or Phthalo Turquoise PB16, then you have Phthalo Cyan PB15-4. Both of these are quite rare, but you can find them. I believe Chimera uses PB15-4 in one of them and PB15-2, which PB15-2 is this one right here. There's a couple versions of it, but yeah, that's PB15-2. Now, you also have a couple other things like Cobalt, okay, and Cobalt. Oh, and you also have Cobalt, and Cobalt, and Cobalt, and Cobalt, and Cobalt, and Cobalt, and Cobalt. Did I mention Cobalt yet? Well, you have a lot of different Cobalts. You also have Ultramarine, which very transparent, very nice. You have a green shade, and you have a red shade as well. They come in a host of different versions. So you have a dark green, you have a bright green, you have an even brighter green, which is this one right here. Now, the typical ones you're only going to see are mid and dark tones within brands, and most of them are only going to have the red shade. Liquitex, however, does have a green shade one, and it's very, very nice. So, if we compare the two here, just to kind of show you, we have PB29, Ultramarine Blue, and then we have Liquitex right here. This is their green shade. So the green shade is the one I would recommend for that, but the red shade also works really nicely. It replicates lapis lazuli very well. Speaking of that, there's a couple other things you can use, like another version of Cobalt called Smalt. This is a very rare, very expensive form of Cobalt, and very toxic. You also, if you really wanted to spend the money, you could use actual lapis lazuli. This is only low-grade version of it, and it's about $80 for this bottle. So, that's something. The world's your oyster. You can use whatever you want. Now, there are pigments like this. This is a studio pigment called Studio Violet. What these are is that this is a dioxazine violet that is cut with lithopode and kaolin, stuff like that. It's cut with mineral extenders, so it's much brighter. However, this also means it's going to be very opaque. That's the thing with opaque colors, is that they will be cut very heavily. Just like fluorescents are. When they're opaque, they are very cut down. When they're matte, they're very cut down. But now you have replacements for all of these, so enjoy. Hopefully this video was helpful, and I'll do the other colors when I get more samples in, as there's a few things here I need samples for, and this is going to be very expensive, and it's going to be very expensive. We're talking a couple $1,000s to finish this video series. So hopefully this was enjoyable. I'm not very good at video editing, so sorry for the jump cuts. Either way, tune in next time when I slam more companies or review paints. Goodbye.